All right, so you're here. You're ready to dive deep.
Yeah, we're not just skimming the surface today.
Not at all. We're going all in on one source, really trying to pull out the core knowledge,
Absolutely, getting to that real substance.
And that source is, of course, Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill.
Yeah, a classic.
Now, this book, it came from over 20 years of research, and it all got started because of, Andrew Carnegie.
Andrew Carnegie,
Yeah.
the steel magnate.
Right. Huge industrialist. And he was convinced that there was, a formula for achieving fortune.
A formula, not just luck, not just circumstance.
That's a magic secret.
No, a set of principles anyone could learn and apply.
And his idea was that everyone should have access to this knowledge. It should be available to anyone. He even thought it could revolutionize education. Imagine that, right?
Wow, yeah, a fundamental shift. He truly believed that if people understood these principles, it could transform how they learn and grow.
But here's the thing, and this is what I find so interesting. Even as Hill was conducting his research, the core secret of the book was being shared.
Really? So people were already putting these ideas into practice.
Yeah. Over 100,000 people got a sneak peek, and the results were, kind of amazing.
That's a significant test group.
Definitely. Some of them, as you might expect, used the principles to make a lot of money. But there were also stories about people improving their relationships, their home life, even a clergyman who significantly increased his income by applying the ideas.
Okay, so we're already seeing that it's about more than just financial wealth.
Exactly. The book is really about achieving a broader sense of riches, success in all areas of life. And what we're going to do today is distill it all down for you.
Right, no need to spend weeks reading and analyzing.
Nope. We're going to extract those key principles that Hill argues lead to this broader sense of riches.
All right, sounds good. Let's get into it.
So one of the very first concepts the book introduces is the power of desire.
Desire. Seems simple enough.
Right. But it's not just any desire. It's got to be a definite desire, something specific and clearly defined. And they use a great story to illustrate this point, the story of Edwin C. Barnes.
Edwin C. Barnes. Tell me more.
So Barnes, he had this burning ambition, but it wasn't just to work for Thomas Edison, it was to work with Edison. He was totally fixated on this idea.
Okay, but that's a pretty big goal. What were the obstacles?
Well, for starters, he didn't even know Edison, and he had basically no money.
Wow. I mean, those are pretty significant hurdles.
Right. Most people will be like, okay, well, that was a nice thought. Time to move on. But not Barnes. He was so consumed by this desire that he traveled all the way from, I think it was Orange, New Jersey, by, get this, hopping freight trains.
Hopping freight trains. Like a hobo.
Yeah, blind baggage, they called it. That's how much he wanted to be in the same city as Edison.
That's incredible. Talk about dedication.
So eventually, he does get to see Edison. Now, Edison later described him as looking just like any other drifter. But there was something about Barnes, something in his face, his demeanor.
Something that set him apart.
Exactly. Edison could see the sheer determination, the unwavering desire, and he decided to give him a chance, even though there wasn't really a job opening.
He saw that fire in the belly, so to speak. That willingness to put it all on the line.
Right, and that's what made all the difference. It's a powerful example of what a deeply felt desire can do. And it makes you think about your own goals, right?
It does.
Like, how definite are your desires? Are you just casually wishing for things? Or do you have that burning passion that would drive you to overcome obstacles, maybe even take unconventional paths like Barnes did?
That's a great question for our listeners to ponder. How badly do you want something? Enough to hop on a freight train, metaphorically speaking, of course.
Exactly. All right, so moving on, the next big principle the book digs into is persistence and learning from your setbacks.
Persistence. It's the theme we see again and again in stories of success.
It's definitely not a straight shot to the top. There are going to be bumps along the way. And the book tells this really memorable story about Mr. Darby and his uncle's gold mining venture.
Okay, a gold mining story. Let's hear it.
So Darby's uncle, he got caught up in the gold rush and, he actually struck a vein of gold.
He did, so they were successful.
They were at first. They were pulling out gold. Everything was looking great. But then suddenly the gold seemed to disappear.
The vein ran dry.
Yes, what they thought. They kept drilling, kept digging, convinced it was still there somewhere, but they couldn't find it.
Oh, I can imagine the frustration.
Yeah. And eventually they just got discouraged. They gave up, sold their equipment, sold the mine, and walked away.
Okay, but what happened next?
This is the part that always blows my mind. The guy who bought the mine from them, he struck a rich vein of gold.
He did. Where?
Just 3 feet from where Darby and his uncle had stopped drilling. 3 feet.
Oh, that's brutal.
Right. They were so close. But they didn't keep going.
But the story doesn't end there, does it?
It doesn't. Years later, Darby realized that even though they hadn't gotten the gold, that experience taught him something incredibly valuable. He called it his 50-cent lesson in persistence.
A 50-cent lesson in persistence. I like that.
Because he understood that what he learned about keeping on, was worth far more than any amount of gold.
He learned to persevere even when things looked bleak.
Exactly. And it's not like he just thought about this, philosophically. He actually applied this lesson to his career. He became a life insurance salesman and ended up selling over $1 million worth of policies every year.
Wow, he turned that failure into fuel for success.
He did. He credited his persistence, which he learned in that gold mine, as a major factor in his achievement. And it's a powerful reminder for all of us, right? When we encounter setbacks, are we giving up too soon? Or are we learning from them and finding ways to keep moving forward?
Really makes you think about how we approach challenges.
Okay, now this idea of persistence, of not giving up, it ties in really closely with another concept from the book. The control of thought. It quotes that famous line, "I am the master of my fate. I am the captain of my soul."
Oh, William Ernest Henley.
Yeah.
Powerful stuff.
Yeah. And the book emphasizes that we have the power to control our thoughts.
We're not just victims of circumstance.
Right. We're in charge of our mental landscape. And we need to cultivate that burning desire to win, block out any thoughts of failure, any doubts, just total mental commitment.
No room for retreat.
And they use a very vivid image to illustrate this. They talk about the aftermath of the Great Chicago Fire.
Oh, wow. What a devastating event.
Yeah. So imagine this. The city is in ruins. Businesses are destroyed. There's a group of merchants standing there surveying the damage. And many of them, understandably, decide to just leave Chicago.
Start fresh somewhere else.
Makes sense. But there was one merchant who didn't leave. He pointed to the wreckage of his store and declared that he would rebuild right on that very spot. And not just rebuild, but create the world's greatest store.
That's bold. Who was this determined individual?
It was Marshall Field. And he was completely unwavering in his decision. And you know what? Decades later, his store was a landmark. It was this huge, impressive monument to his refusal to give up.
He turned tragedy into triumph.
He did. He didn't let the devastation break him. He had that burning desire, that absolute commitment. And it's a powerful lesson for us, isn't it? How much do we truly desire our goals? Are we willing to shut out all thoughts of retreat and commit completely?
That level of mental fortitude is inspiring.
Okay, so building on this foundation of desire and persistence, the book introduces the concepts of money consciousness and practical dreaming.
Okay, now this sounds interesting. Break it down for me.
So, money consciousness, it's not about just constantly obsessing about money, right?
Yeah.
It's more about developing a mindset where you are so convinced of acquiring wealth that you can vividly imagine yourself already having it.
So it's almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy. You believe it so strongly that you draw it towards you.
Right. It's about shifting from just wanting money to feeling like you already possess it. And the book links this to the idea that all great leaders throughout history have been dreamers.
Dreamers, huh? But not just any dreamers, right?
No, they're practical dreamers. People who don't just fantasize, but who take action to make their dreams a reality. And the book shares some incredible examples.
Okay, like what?
Well, there's the story of this father who was told that his son would never be able to hear, and he just refused to accept that.
He didn't give up hope?
Not at all. He was driven by this intense desire for his son to have a normal life, to be able to hear and speak, and he took action. He walked over 1,000 miles with his son, constantly talking to him, communicating with him.
That's incredible. Did it work?
It did. Against all odds, his son eventually learned to hear and speak. It's this amazing testament to the power of a parent's belief and determination.
Wow, that's truly inspiring.
Right. And the book also mentions other examples like Whelan, the founder of United Cigar Stores, and of course Lincoln with his dream of freeing enslaved people.
And we can't forget the Wright brothers.
Yeah, the Wright brothers, absolutely. They achieved what seemed impossible at the time, human flight. And the point the book makes is that all of these achievements stemmed from a burning desire, from refusing to let setbacks extinguish their dreams.
So the key is to be a practical dreamer, to not only envision success, but to also create a plan and take concrete steps to achieve it.
Exactly. And that brings us to the next crucial element, faith and the technique of autosuggestion.
Faith and autosuggestion. Okay, now we're getting into the more, shall we say, esoteric aspects of the book.
Maybe a little bit. But it's presented in a very practical way. The book argues that faith is not just some magical gift you either have or you don't. It's a state of mind that you can develop through the practice of autosuggestion.
So you're essentially programming your own mind for success.
Exactly. And they even provide a self-confidence formula to help with this. It involves defining your purpose, focusing your thoughts on achieving it, believing in your ability to do so, and eliminating negative thoughts.
It's like a solid blueprint for building confidence.
It is. And autosuggestion is presented as this fundamental law of the mind. The idea is that the thoughts you consistently focus on will eventually manifest in your reality.
Our minds are powerful tools, and we often underestimate their influence on our lives.
The book compares the subconscious mind to a fertile garden. Whatever seeds you plant, whether it's thoughts of fear or thoughts of courage, thoughts of lack or thoughts of abundance, that's what will grow.
So it's essential to be mindful of the thoughts we're feeding our minds.
Absolutely. And the book emphasizes that this principle works both ways. So if you're constantly dwelling on negative thoughts, doubts, fears, those things can become self-fulfilling prophecies.
It can be a dangerous cycle. The book even uses the term mental suicide to describe how destructive negative thinking can be.
Wow, yeah, that's pretty strong language. But it highlights the importance of consciously choosing our thoughts. We have the power to reprogram our minds for success by consistently feeding them positive affirmations, cultivating unwavering belief in ourselves.
It's like training a muscle. The more you practice positive thinking, the stronger it becomes.
That's a great analogy. And the book uses another one. It compares the mind to a musical instrument.
Okay, I like that one.
You can play any tune you want by choosing which keys to press. It's the same with your thoughts. You choose which ones to focus on, and that determines the music of your life.
So we're not just passive listeners, we're the composers of our own mental soundtrack.
I love that. And to show how powerful this can be, the book points to Gandhi. He achieved incredible things through his unwavering belief in nonviolent resistance. It was faith in action.
He moved millions of people without an army.
Exactly. So it's a great question for all of us right now. Are we consciously using autosuggestion to build up our faith, our belief in ourselves? What messages are we sending to our subconscious minds?
It's an invitation to take a closer look at our inner dialogue and make sure it's aligned with our goals.
Okay, so we've talked about desire, persistence, the control of thought, faith, autosuggestion. But here's another key principle from the book. It's not enough to just have knowledge.
Okay, so it's not just about filling our heads with information.
No, it has to be organized knowledge that's transformed into practical plans of action. The book states that knowledge is only potential power. It only becomes actual power when it's structured and applied toward a definite goal.
So it's not what you know, it's how you use it.
Exactly. And this addresses a really common frustration. You see people who are highly educated, they have degrees, they know a lot of things, but they're not seeing the results they want in life. And the book argues that this is often because they haven't learned how to organize and apply their knowledge effectively.
It's like having a toolbox full of tools, but not knowing how to use them.
Perfect analogy. And they use Henry Ford as an example of this. You know, Ford was famously called ignorant during a court case.
Really? The Henry Ford.
Yeah. But the point is, while he might not have been well versed in a wide range of subjects, he had very specialized knowledge about building cars. And he knew how to organize and use that knowledge effectively.
He was a master of his craft.
And that, the book says, is more valuable than having a broad but unfocused education. It's about identifying the specific knowledge you need to achieve your goals and then going out and getting it.
So, targeted learning. Be strategic about what you study and how you apply it.
Exactly. And they tell this great story about a woman who created a plan book for her son who was looking for a job.
A plan book. What was in it?
It was more than just a resume. It was this meticulously detailed document that laid out his skills, his experience, the specific position he wanted, and how he would excel in that role. It even included research on the company he was targeting, their competitors, all sorts of insights and suggestions.
Wow, she really went all out.
She did. And the result? He got the job offer without even having a formal interview.
That's impressive. The power of a well-structured plan.
It shows how important it is to not just have knowledge, but to organize it into a clear, actionable strategy. So for you listening, think about this. Are you just gathering information, or are you turning your knowledge into concrete plans?
It's a call to be more intentional with our learning and how we apply what we know.
Okay, after we've got our plans in place, the book dives into the role of imagination.
Imagination, huh? Sounds a bit fluffy, but I'm intrigued.
It might sound that way, but the book argues that imagination is the faculty that allows us to transform desire into its physical equivalent.
So it's the bridge between the mental realm and the physical world.
That's a great way to put it. And it distinguishes between two types of imagination. There's synthetic imagination, which is basically arranging existing ideas in new ways. And then there's creative imagination, which is coming up with entirely new ideas.
So innovation, thinking outside the box.
Exactly. And the book tells this fascinating story about an old country doctor who sold a secret for creating wealth to a young drug clerk.
The secret. What was it?
Well, it was essentially just an idea, but it was a powerful idea. And the young clerk took that idea and, using his own creative imagination, combined it with another ingredient to create something that became incredibly successful.
I'm sensing a Coca-Cola connection here.
You got it.
Yeah.
While the book doesn't explicitly name it, it's pretty clear that they're talking about the origin of Coca-Cola.
Wow, so a seemingly simple idea, when combined with imagination and action, can lead to huge success.
That's the point. And they also share a story about a minister who envisioned having $1 million and then crafted a sermon around that vision. And guess what? It led to an opportunity for him to acquire the funds he needed.
Talk about manifestation.
Right. It highlights the power of using your imagination to not just dream about your desires, but to actually plan for their realization.
So visualize it, believe it, and then create a roadmap to make it happen.
Exactly. Now, the book also introduces a concept called the mastermind principle.
The mastermind, what's that all about?
Well, it's basically the idea of combining your knowledge and effort with other people who share your goals. The book argues that no one can achieve great things entirely on their own. We need to collaborate, leverage the power of collective intelligence.
Two heads are better than one, and so on.
Yeah, that's the basic idea. It's about forming a group where everyone is working together in harmony toward a common purpose.
That's sort of dream team, a collective of minds focused on a shared vision.
Exactly. And the book points to Henry Ford as an example. They say his success wasn't just due to his own brilliance, but also to the fact that he surrounded himself with other brilliant minds like Edison and Firestone.
He formed a powerful network of collaborators.
And he was constantly learning from them, bouncing ideas off of them, getting their feedback.
So it's not just about being in a group, it's about actively engaging with that group, working together to develop plans and strategies.
Exactly. The mastermind is about more than just networking. It's about true collaboration.
It's about building a team that amplifies each other's strengths and helps to overcome individual weaknesses.
So it's a great question for all of us. Are we part of a mastermind group? Are we actively seeking out collaborations that can help us achieve our goals?
It's a reminder that we don't have to go it alone. There's power in numbers, especially when those numbers represent a diverse range of talents and perspectives.
Now, building on this idea of collaboration, the book emphasizes the importance of decision.
Decision-making.
Yeah.
It's a crucial skill for success in any field.
Absolutely. And the book argues that people who make decisions quickly and decisively tend to be the ones who achieve their goals. Leaders, in particular, are often characterized by their ability to make tough calls without hesitation.
They don't get bogged down in indecision.
Exactly. And what's interesting is that the book suggests that sometimes our education systems can actually encourage indecisiveness.
Really? How so?
Well, they argue that too much emphasis on analysis and debate without a corresponding focus on action can lead to paralysis by analysis.
We overthink things and end up not taking any action at all.
Right. They propose that education should actually train students to be decisive, to make choices and commit to them.
Interesting concept. Teach decision-making as a core skill.
Yeah, and they use a powerful historical example, John Hancock and Samuel Adams. Their decision to demand the removal of British soldiers from Boston was a major turning point in the American Revolution.
A bold move that had far-reaching consequences.
Exactly. It shows how one decisive action can have a huge impact. So it's worth asking ourselves, are we decisive in our own lives? Or do we tend to procrastinate, second-guess ourselves, and avoid making tough choices?
It's a call to be more proactive and take ownership of our decisions.
All right, we've covered a lot of ground here, but there's one more crucial principle we need to talk about. Persistence.
Persistence. We touched on this earlier. It seems to be a recurring theme.
It is, and for good reason. The book emphasizes that while desire is the starting point, persistence is what keeps us going when things get tough.
It's the fuel that drives us toward our goal.
Exactly. And they use a great analogy to illustrate this. They talk about how we wake up from a nightmare.
Okay, I'm listening.
It happens gradually, right? With each little bit of effort, we pull ourselves further and further away from the nightmare until we're finally free.
It's a process of gradually overcoming the fear and negativity.
And that's how persistence works in real life. We might encounter setbacks, obstacles, things that make us want to give up. But if we keep pushing, keep taking action, eventually we break through.
We wear down the resistance through consistent effort.
Exactly. And the book shares stories about people like Fannie Hurst and Kate Smith who faced countless rejections before finally achieving success on Broadway.
They didn't let the no's stop them.
They didn't. They kept going, kept refining their craft, kept believing in themselves, and eventually they achieved their goals. And the book identifies several key factors that contribute to persistence.
What are they?
Having a clear purpose, a strong desire, self-reliance, well-defined plans, and accurate knowledge.
So it's not just about willpower, it's about having a solid foundation to stand on.
Right. When you know what you want, you believe in your ability to achieve it, and you have a plan, it's much easier to keep going, even when things get tough.
It gives you the inner strength to persevere.
So think about it. How persistent are you in your own pursuits? What keeps you going when you encounter challenges?
What's your internal fuel source for overcoming obstacles?
All right, and finally, we come to a topic that's often overlooked but is absolutely crucial: the 6 ghosts of fear.
6 ghosts of fear. This sounds intriguing.
Yeah, it's one of the most important parts of the book. They argue that there are these 6 basic fears that hold people back from achieving their full potential.
And these fears can operate on a subconscious level, right?
Exactly. They can sabotage us without us even realizing it. They can manifest as discouragement, procrastination, all sorts of negative behaviors.
Okay, so what are these 6 fears?
They are the fear of poverty, the fear of criticism, the fear of ill health, the fear of loss of love, the fear of old age, and the fear of death.
Wow, that's a pretty comprehensive list of anxieties.
It is, and the book goes into detail about how each of these fears can manifest in our lives.
Like, for example, how the fear of poverty can lead to financial struggles.
Exactly. They even point to the Great Depression as an example of how collective fear can have a real impact on the economy.
And the fear of criticism can stifle our creativity and prevent us from taking risks.
Absolutely. We become afraid to put ourselves out there, to share our ideas, to pursue our dreams.
And the other fears, they can manifest in various ways as well. The fear of ill health can lead to hypochondria. The fear of loss of love can make us clingy and insecure in our relationships.
And so on. The point is that these fears are often operating beneath the surface of our awareness.
They're like invisible chains holding us back.
And the key is to identify which fears are holding us back and then confront them.
Shine a light on them, bring them into our conscious awareness so we can start to dismantle them.
Exactly. And with that, we come to the end of our deep dive into Think and Grow Rich.
What a journey it's been.
The book presents a comprehensive philosophy for achieving success, both financially and in all areas of life.
It all starts with desire, but it's fueled by faith, persistence, organized knowledge, the power of imagination, the support of a mastermind group, decisive action, and the overcoming of fear.
It's a powerful blueprint for creating the life you want.
And it's important to remember that we've only just scratched the surface here. There's so much more to explore in the book itself.
So here's a final thought for you to ponder. Which of these principles resonated with you the most? And what's one small step you can take today to start applying it in your own life?
Take action, even if it's just a tiny step. That's how you turn knowledge into power.
We encourage you to delve deeper into Think and Grow Rich and discover the incredible potential that lies within you.
You have the power to create the life you desire. Believe in yourself, take action, and never give up on your dreams.
And that concludes our deep dive for today. Thanks for joining us.
It's been a pleasure exploring these powerful ideas with you.
Until next time.
Take care.